And what have we got? We have, that's the homepage there. I know it sounds bad, but he's English. Kevin Kilban, he's telling the truth, 100%. Jordan Henderson is indeed English, but he's also making the case that that's why he ended up with the Players' Rider of the Year. They used to call me his shadow, Ronan O'Gara, talking about the best Munster imports. That's Christian Cullen in particular that he was shadowing around. Is this the most celebrated league ever? Pat Nevin talking about Liverpool's league victory and Howe now has a relegation on his CV. Pat Nevin and Bournemouth's Eddie Howe, and how he might need to get a move on before his reputation resets or before he loses some of that. I don't know what you think about that, Owen. We'll come back to that in just a couple of minutes, but I'm going to run you through what's in the rest of the sports pages this morning. We'll start with the English papers. The Guardian. Blue Monday for Cardiff as Fulham close in on Wembley. Manager of the Year Klopp will let Liverpool players travel. So he's saying that they can go on holidays on condition that the destinations are cleared by the club and they make immediate arrangements to leave any country affected by a spike in COVID-19. And Japan and Fiji join Six Nations teams in autumn tournament. The details of that came yesterday. The London Times, TV games to be cut despite ban on fans. So we think that there might be a percentage of fans allowed, 33% full from October the 1st is what the Times reported. So there will be some fans in grounds, but the Premier League are planning on going back to the original TV deals that they had with their broadcasters as opposed to making stuff free to air. And that's Timo Werner, Chelsea's new signing, joins his teammates at training and can look forward to Champions League football next season. Klopp's 3:30 call to Sir Alex is the other headline there. And England face Celtic rivals is the rugby story on the back of that one. The Mail for you there this morning is Frank KO's Kepa. Chelsea ready to offload their £72 million flop goalkeeper. And the English Mail has a picture of Declan Rice there saying he's going to be very expensive. And the Irish one has Princess Zoe reigns as Galway gets going. It's in the Racing yesterday. They also have a story from Michael Clifford saying Kevin McStay has revealed he would consider doing a U-turn on his decision to quit management if Mayo ever asked him. McStay had ruled himself out of a return to management after stepping down from Roscommon after 3 years in charge in 2018. But supposing Mayo rang tomorrow morning, there'd be a little fella on my shoulder saying, of course, you can do this now. You're well rested now. You've loads of experience. I'm in my late 50s now. I've gone through an awful lot in the last 10 years. If you don't have the energy or enthusiasm or the fire they want for it, you'd be at nothing. And yet there's a part of me, having said everything I've said, sure, wouldn't you sit down anyway and listen to what they had to say? So, the Mirror, Villa jack up the price. United told Grealish can be yours for 80 million sterling. And why not? Take the Man United money, make them pay the Man United tax. What a boss. Fergie gives Klopp top award and teases him 30 years. Incredible. What a mess. Watford bosses admit we made mistakes. Wow. No, they didn't. So apparently the Potters have never had a relegation in any of their clubs, Udinese, Granada and Watford. And it's the first time they've had it dropped. So we'll see what's going to happen next. There's the graphic from the back of the Sun. It's... Hey Alex, did you hear we won the league? And Ferguson in his Man United jammies. Fergie reveals 3:30 Klopp call. And you're so lucky Bayern chief hits out at ban let-off. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge has accused UEFA of bungling their move to ban Manchester City from Europe. Yes, they did. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says he wants to win the Premier League title because, you know, that's his gig. 85 million jackpot. That's a Euros that the Star has there for the price when it comes to Jack Grealish. Autumn comp for Ireland, what we've been talking about there. Wallace calls for FIFA help. Mick Wallace is appealing to FIFA President Gianni Infantino to intervene in the escalating row over the revamp of the FAI board. So that is a story that's not going to go anywhere. And yeah, sorry, that was the Telegraph. Bournemouth could sue over ghost goal. Bournemouth are considering taking legal advice over the Hawkeye error that contributed to the relegation from the Premier League. Hawkeye publicly apologised, which I guess puts them on the hook for it, when Sheffield United's goal in the 0-0 draw against Villa last month was ruled out. And that point from the game proved crucial. Had the goal stood and all other results remained the same, Bournemouth would have stayed up on goal difference and Villa would have been relegated. But of course Villa would have known what they had to do, and so therefore who knows what would have changed. So you can't, you know, if what is it Liam Brady says after the Brighton game, from me granny head balls to me granddad. Sports Tuesday, Klopp allows players on holiday. This is the Irish Times, and they also have Shane Long and John Egan. Promising signs for Kenny in Irish Premier League numbers. Emmett Malone has crunched the numbers, and Chelsea very optimistic about Kai Havertz. And then GAA optimistic the crowd restrictions can be eased after successful club return. So that not a million miles away. I think Luke O'Neill was kind of pouring cold water on anything beyond 500, but not saying that 500 would be a disaster. Is that? And the Examiner there, Landers, there's a new brand in Cork and a big change is coming. So Mark Landers, who was obviously captain of the team when the first strike happened in the Cork Hurlers, believes that big changes are coming to Cork. They've announced a bunch of new sponsors and they've announced a deal with the Examiner. And they've got the Bon Secours and the Co-op for the hurlers and the footballers. And what would happen if Cork industrialised the process of getting talent through and making money the way Dublin have done over the last 10 years? They would be good at everything, right? And then GAA, selfish to look for crowd increase, says Ryan. So it's Tom Ryan saying that the GAA were selfish to look for a crowd increase. That's the ex-Limerick manager, obviously not the DG. Now 76, Ryan said he would have no problem attending a game but had not sought a ticket for any of the recent Limerick Hurling Championships. The advice from the health authorities is not to go into crowded areas, and people have a fear of that as well, and I don't think that's such a bad thing. What's more important than numbers is the protocols being followed and the highest, safest precautions being taken. I don't see how the GAA can look for more. If they get the championship played, then that's what matters. There are plenty of ways for people to follow the games with local radio, streaming and TV. Just a reminder about the Spanish back pages. We'll go for those. Marca backing João Felix in the Champions League. And AS, the academy is the wallet. So they're not going to be spending any money this year. Mundo Deportivo is Artur disappears, and there Artur Sabora, Artur in absentia is the same on Sport there. And then just to finish up from what's available to you this morning, a quick look at what's going on with the app, the OTB Sports app this morning. Your home feed, busy and populated by the stories that you have subscribed to. You can change them by clicking on the little human being in the top right hand corner. You can click on the radio button to get a full live radio stream 24 hours a day. It's obviously the live shows and then loads of our best stuff and some of our new podcast series. All of them are exclusive to the app first. So that's your first play. And then your podcast stream. This is the best place to listen to our podcasts, including the OTB Brief, which is news headlines and all the stories that you need to prepare yourself for the day, live from 7 o'clock every morning. Now, where are we starting, Owen?
We'll start with that Cork story that you just mentioned there. It's not something that I had actually given a whole pile of thought to before you were talking about it there, but just about the sort of untapped potential that still is Cork GAA. And you talk about the piling in of resources and turning the ship in the right direction and putting everything behind it and what that can turn out to be for a county. You look at Dublin and it's been unbelievably successful. Cork shouldn't be that far off Dublin in terms of being close to some level of dominance. And I don't know why this is. Is this because they are technically more of a dual county than Dublin, as in their footballers would have a better chance of winning the All-Ireland in the last 20 years than the Dublin hurlers would? I'm not quite sure what the answer is. And it got me thinking about a couple of scenarios here. And I'll put this question to you. Which of these three things is most likely to happen first? Dublin top the All-Ireland football Roll of Honour. Cork return to the top of the hurling Roll of Honour. Let's not forget that they were top of the hurling Roll of Honour, 15 years ago, before Kilkenny's maybe third of their 4 in a row. Or this one, a county does a football hurling double. Which of those three things is going to happen first, do you think?
Give me the figures. Kilkenny have 36 titles, is that right?
I'm just looking at it here. So Kilkenny have 36, correct.
How many do Cork have?
Tipperary have 28, and then Cork have 29. So Cork are 7 behind Kilkenny.
Whoa.
Dublin are 8 behind Kerry. And the last time, obviously, a county's done a football hurling double was 1990, wasn't it?
Dublin are 8 behind Kerry.
8 behind Kerry, and Cork are 7 behind Kilkenny, but they also have to leapfrog Tipperary in that regard. Like, you should say, in terms of resources, like the Dublin thing is most likely to accelerate further, except for the fact that Kerry have good teams. Cork probably looks like the least likely of those situations to happen, and I'm not sure who you actually blame for that, or if that's actually the way things should be. Like, I guess the history that Kilkenny and Tip have brought to things has been incredible in recent history as much as anything else. But I just can't really see Cork topping the All-Ireland hurling tally anytime soon, despite the fact that they should have the biggest playing pool, they should have the best resources behind the game, because it is unquestionably the number one sport.
It is unquestionably the number one sport. That's true. However, it's obviously more difficult to get young kids to be at an elite level in hurling than it is in football, because there are more skills involved and more coaching hours and all that kind of stuff. So therefore the tradition really matters, and that's why the tradition in Kilkenny, given that they don't play anything else in Gaelic Games terms, means that they will always be consistently competitive. Tipperary have also invested huge amounts of money and resources, and that there's going to be kind of a continuity you would expect now from the quality of people that they have around that senior inter-county setup. And I don't know what the work being done at underage level is like, but you would assume that there is some kind of, maybe that's a mistake to make, but that level of investment is being followed through, and that those people aren't just looking after the top tier. So I would say hurling will be competitive with those three counties at least, and then you would expect Galway and Limerick, and hopefully you'll see strong Clare and maybe Waterford make a comeback. So there's enough strength and depth in hurling for that championship to be competitive. So it could take 3 decades where Cork were the dominant team for them to make up that amount.
Yeah.
With Gaelic football, my prediction is that in the next 10 years, Dublin will win 8 All-Irelands and Kerry will win 2, and we'll look back on that as a golden age of competitiveness because Dublin didn't win all of them. That only closes the gap by 6, obviously. So Kerry are still ahead, but give me the maths again. What are the figures?
Dublin currently on 29, Kerry are on 37.
So there's 8 in the difference. The gap will close to 2 over the next decade, and then at some point the decade after that, assuming that Dublin doesn't get split, and that, you know, the annual Dublin versus Kerry match to decide the All-Ireland maybe it becomes a best of 5 series. I don't know. Who knows? Like, it's impossible to tell what's going to happen because the level of dominance that we're seeing from Dublin over the last while. Like, you know, if you were Machiavellian, you'd be like saying to the Dubs, just ease it up here now, lads. You know, just don't do a 6 in a row, lose this one, and then do another 5 in a row, so that you at least give the illusion of it being a competitive championship.
I would say that Dublin will need to top the All-Ireland football tally pretty quickly for them to actually get split in 2. So it will be quite a Machiavellian move for someone inside the camp to say that.
Slow it down, yeah.
Yeah, let's not win everything here. Like, we've done the 5. That record is signed, sealed, and delivered. Like, I'm resigned to the fact that at some point in my life soon, I will see Dublin top the All-Ireland football Roll of Honour.
Well,
it's kind of like going bald, losing your teeth, aging in general. The fact that Dublin are going to top that Roll of Honour is like an inevitability in life, and I've resigned myself to it. Middle-age spread.
Yeah, I mean, you can fight all these things, though, and you can...
Mobility.
You can fight all of those things. You just have to do a little bit of work. I think the most important thing, though, is that Cork get their house in order, that there is a new breed coming through, that they do look at what Dublin did and invest the money in the same way. Now, I don't think it bodes very well that they put all the money and resources into the stadium, and that has not been a project that has been without massive teething problems and overrun expenses to the point where Croke Park had to step in. That doesn't bode well for the county having its house in order. You would hope that this new breed of people who have less to do with that than previous administrations did, that they will actually kind of use that as a bulwark or a firewall against behaving the way they have in the past and trying to make things be about underage teams and participation levels, and on the other side of that, that the sponsorship starts to ratchet up to a point where they can begin to compete properly on both a hurling and football front, because the football championship needs Cork to be good.
Yeah, 100%. Like, the point here is that Cork should be targeting winning a football hurling double. Like, that it may come across as arrogant if you're from Cork and you're saying that, but that is realistically what they should be targeting. They've done that in living memory. There are people who are available with the information who have achieved that very thing over the last 30-something years. They should also be targeting going top of the hurling Roll of Honour. If they really want to, you know, push the chest out and preach about their Corkness. Corkness is being the best. That is part of their entire psyche. And there is no question that, particularly in hurling, over the past 15 years, it has been a sorry state of underachievement for Cork. And that isn't even just kind of like looking at the greatness of Kilkenny and looking at some of the great teams that have come along over the last 10 years, notably Limerick, and then like Galway have obviously come through with one of the greatest players of the modern era. But even with the players that they've had, Cork will feel that they should have taken a couple of All-Irelands in that period. And they've choked on times, actually, that they haven't been able to get over the line. So it is not just a question of how do we get our structures in place to ensure that the talent coming through is better. It's also at the very top tier. It's a Mayo sort of question. How do we get over the line? And of course, their famine is nowhere near the hunger that Mayo people feel at this point. But given the base that Cork came off in the mid 2000s, it's getting to that stage, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that because they know what it's like to win, it's worse in some ways. I mean, it's a difficult case to win making that argument. But anyway, say Cork had won in 2013. Would they have disappeared the way Clare have done?
My tendency is to say no, because of the fact that Clare obviously had to wait, what was it, 18 years? No, sorry, there was one delay. My maths is going to be all wrong here, 14, 15 years. Whatever it was, it definitely felt like far more of a rarity than the Cork thing would have been. Cork would have been, what, 9 years at that point? But it kind of would have felt like a return to normality, really. Like, the extraordinary things we've seen have been teams ending a famine which they probably didn't deserve to go through. And one of those that did end is Dublin in 2011 in the football. Like, could Cork have done Dublin in 2011 in football by winning in 2013? Possibly. Like, let's not forget that in 2011, Dublin snuck over the line. Cork in 2013 would have snuck over the line had they obviously won that tied first game or won the replay. The first game is obviously where the opportunity really was for them. Like, there's every chance that could have turned into a really dominant team at that point, because as we now realise, the decade was there for the taking. There was definitely a period of flux in the aftermath of a giant like Kilkenny and all their best players slowing down. It's a natural thing that happens to every team. There was a gap in the market for the next dominant team to come along. Nobody took that opportunity. But had Cork got over the line, it would have been like a boulder rolling downhill. That Corkness would have come out. The kids would have been inspired. It would have had a real, a genuine impact on what would have happened next, I reckon. So, no, I don't think it would have been a Clare effect.
Okay, everybody on Twitter is attacking us. How many titles do you say Cork have?
Cork, everybody on Twitter is attacking us. Cork in the hurling, I'm just looking at it here, have 29.
Somebody's saying they have 30 titles. Paul Curtin and Adrian.
Cork have 30, sorry, Cork have 30, yeah.
And so how many did Kilkenny have?
Sorry, Cork do have 30. That is my bad. I forgot about the 2005 All-Ireland final there for a moment. Kilkenny are on 36.
Okay, all right. Okay, so look, it's still a sizable gap. It would take at least 6 years, and they would be 6 amazing years of dominance from Cork. They would have to do 6 in a row to get it level. And you know, look, maybe that's about to happen. Maybe we're on the verge of a new red age. Who knows? But yeah, you're making the case that Cork would not have disappeared the way Clare have done, essentially, from the national picture since they won that All-Ireland in 2013. No. Did you say it was a fluky win for Clare? Was that your point? Clare fluked an All-Ireland and then disappeared?
They should be building a Mount Rushmore to the 4 different expressions of Davy Fitz for getting them over the line that year. My point here is that it just seems like a foregone conclusion that in the 3 different scenarios that I presented you, Dublin passing Kerry out in the Roll of Honour is inevitably going to be the one that happens. Why is Cork getting to the top of the hurling Roll of Honour or winning a dual All-Ireland? Why is that not the inevitability? And I think that is down to Cork as much as it is down to the greatness of Dublin.
OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. It is 8:52, and those of you who are sharp will have noticed that Owen had a conversation there about Cork and turned it into a referendum on Kerry. With like, you know, not even pretending that he wasn't turning it into a referendum about Kerry. And look, I appreciate exactly what you've done there, but we'll come back to Kerry's issues, and I think it's about time we had a power rankings. I might say we must be a week away, surely, from a pre-season inter-county on the basis of how well certain clubs are doing. Like, because the Examiner have such a focus on the Cork club scene, it looks to me like every single Cork footballer is tearing up trees at the moment and is absolutely flying. And like that could be the car crash. That could be the ambush that is the opening round of the championship and Kerry gone day one.
It's a very obvious banana skin, I think. I think that if you're going to put money on a little bit of a surprise early in the championship, it would have to be that one. They do look buff, they look burly, all the Cork footballers that are out. The front page of the Irish Examiner yesterday was a Brian Hurley taking a forearm smash to the face and surviving, coming out the other end, living to tell the tale. They're literally punching the heads off each other at the moment in Cork. They're training. They're like the Vikings in camp, ready to horrify the rest of the country for the great of Cork. And I'm looking forward to that particular encounter. But to say it's an ambush, I think I'm not sure. I think everybody's very well aware of where Cork are at.
Division 3. That's where they're at. They're in Division 3.
Very impressive in Division 3.
That'd be an
very,
ambush.
very, very impressive in Division 3.
That would be an ambush. Kevin McStay said that he would take the Mayo gig if they came and asked him. That's an interesting little wrinkle to this off-season.
We don't usually get this, do we? Where somebody talks about potentially being interested in a gig that they don't have in Gaelic games, especially somebody of the profile that Kevin McStay has. So I'm not sure does he know something that we don't, that perhaps the Mayo job will become available later on this year. So he's a guy who didn't do himself any harm with the Roscommon gig. He obviously got a lot of criticism, well, not a lot, a bit of criticism from inside the camp at the start when he took over about a Mayo man taking over Roscommon. I think that obviously Mayo people have been burned in the past by their own men going off and achieving great things with other counties. And I'm talking about John O'Mahony in that regard, that if he's putting himself into contention, if there was to be the job available in the next year or two, you'd have to listen to his candidacy for sure. You'd have to have a chat with him. But I would not be getting ahead of myself one bit in terms of that job being available anytime soon. I think that James Horan went back for one reason and one reason only. And the way things have turned out this year, despite the fact that they have to go back and play 2 league games, it's just one of those strange years where you're like, could Mayo end up like navigating themselves to an All-Ireland again? Or I don't know. Like last year just kind of felt like a typical Mayo thing where they managed to get out of that Super 8s group when nobody really gave them a huge chance of doing so after getting beaten on the opening day, and they still managed to navigate their way back to a semi-final. Dublin smashed them, obviously, and I think they're still a good bit off Dublin, but something weird is going to happen with Mayo this year, I suspect, and this very handy excuse about the 2 league games before the championship, I've got a feeling that they actually could work a little bit in their favour. It's certainly something to give them a bit of a siege mentality.
The fact that you've got those games, though, it's ideal, right? It's the proper preparation that you would want.
Well, exactly, and they've got something to play for. Now, everybody will have 2 games to actually get ready, but they're meaningless for a lot of other teams. So you're kind of like, do we go hell for leather here to ensure that players are match fit?
Yeah.
But do we not go hell for leather
You
because...
get match fit. You get match fit. There's no...
Yeah, but you don't want to give away anything, whereas Mayo need to probably
What are you giving away? Like, what? Like, I'm going to play the big guy up front and I might hit some diagonal balls to him, or I've got a, defensive system that you've already seen. Like, come and beat me. Like, we know what Dublin are going to do. They just do it better than everybody else, right? There's no... Unless there is, like, the quality of analysis we're getting from the paid GAA analysts is so crap that they can't tell the difference between what one team is doing from one week to the next. And I don't think that's the case, is it?
I don't think so either. Like, the thing with Dublin is that obviously they've got a new manager and we haven't got a full betting in period to see what they're going to do. Like, if they were going to get to a league final this year, although that did look doubtful, it would have been interesting to see what they would have done on kind of a big day in Croke Park when something was at stake. So I think there's still a bit of... I think with everything there's a bit of mystery shrouding a lot of teams. Like we saw it in the Premier League when teams came back. Younger players were bulkier, they were better, they were given more of an opportunity.
Yeah. Like
this has been a proper off season. We're only starting to see club form now. Expect a few bolters in a lot of the teams. Like from what I've heard, there have been people dropped off certain panels even during lockdown and stuff. So like there is.
How did that happen? So they weren't training.
But that I don't know. But the decisions have been made, and there has been a lot of flux. According to what I've heard in some inter-county panels.
Right.
Rightly so. Like, I mean, when you've taken, what's it going to be? So you've got March up until October. That's a 7-month layoff with your inter-county team. Things are going to change.
One last story that we want to talk about. The Premier League, it looks like, won't have the same amount of games free to air that they had when the football season comes back. I kind of figured that this was going to happen, Owen, because Sky and BT pay an absolute fortune, and one of the reasons football came back as quickly as it did was because Sky and BT pay an absolute fortune. And so for that short period of time to I don't know, was it to kind of bribe the government in one way, say, oh look, we'll put these games on free to air, let's all be part of whatever it was, the national effort to keep the numbers down. That will have passed by the time the new season starts, and football's going to go back to behind the paywall. Is this a bad thing? Was that like a little glimpse of what the world should actually be like?
I think it was no bad thing for the Premier League. I'm kind of surprised that they are immediately reverting to type, and it seems that there's not going to be a whole pile of a fight put up. Like, I guess it's just really hard to fit in this Premier League schedule because you seem to always have Carabao Cup or FA Cup or Champions League midweek, and it's really hard to fit in full midweek programs. And in fairness, they've got a lot of midweek programs. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 weeks during the entire Premier League season where you do have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday football in the Premier League. I think it was already navigating towards a football every night situation. It was just lockdown ensured that we had football every night, bar 3 nights, I think it was, during the resumption of the Premier League. The thing is, what you had then was staggered kickoffs. So you had like 4 hours of football on TV. You had more eyeballs on the likes of Wolves and Sheffield United than you usually would. But part of that was, of course, that people couldn't really go outside their homes and people were at home watching the games. So in a normal society, do 5 o'clock games on a Wednesday night between Leicester and, I don't know, Leeds. Do they get the eyeballs on them that they would in lockdown? Maybe not. But at the same time, the eyeballs that they do get on them, is that a bad thing? Because they would just be the game that people don't watch or a game that isn't televised. I certainly think for the publicity of the league, for the rights holders, it was a positive step for them, for the balance and for the value of the rights over the last little while. So I'm surprised they've moved away from it.
Okay, it is 8:59.